we'll be doing tonight, and then we actually have members of our community planning group here tonight that will lead you through all of these ideas. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and then we're actually going to ask you to vote on your preferences to give us a sense of where the heat is on these ideas. So, if you've been to one of the other sessions, this might look familiar. Manchester Proud has been going through a really robust and really exciting community-led planning process. And so what that means is we first started with what we call visioning work. It's the idea of if we got feedback from everyone in the community and we asked them, what do our kids need to know and be able to do in order to be successful in the future? What are the kinds of skills and dispositions, knowledge that we think kids need in order to thrive in Manchester? What does that look like? And I'll actually show you the answer from that work in a second. Then we took that vision and said, if we meet this vision, what are the ideas for Manchester School District to meet that? What kinds of things do we need to be successful in order to do right by all kids? The 5 categories that emerged were teaching and learning, finance, governance, organizational effectiveness, and community partnerships as kind of core pivotal areas to really be focusing on improvement and innovation in. No real surprises there in terms of the categories. And then we looked and brainstormed ideas that fit into those based on a really rigorous research and data collection process, community engagement findings, and the own kind of expertise of the members of our community planning group. So what did they come up with as well? We are in what we are calling right now validation. A fancy word basically just means getting feedback on those ideas. Because this is a community-led process, what is really important is that the community has input and helps lead what elements of the plan as it currently exists actually make it to fruition. So we have all these ideas right now. We're trying to validate and get feedback on them in order to determine which are most viable and have the most success going forward, that the community really has a lot of energy behind. We're currently drafting that plan as we get all of that feedback, and it'll be presented to the board first in late January, and then a final ratification of it in mid-February on February 20th. So that's kind of just the arc of this work so far. So I mentioned that visioning work. This is Manchester's new graduate profile. Over 3,500 members of your community identified these core knowledge and skills. I can read them to you quickly because I know they're tiny. We basically said, you all said, all kids in Manchester need to be able to communicate and collaborate, have critical thinking and problem-solving skills, a growth mindset or resilience and adaptability in order to thrive, what we call an equity mindset or cultural competency, being able to empathize with those around us, work and life ready basics, those are things like reading and writing and arithmetic, all those essentials, and a specific call out as well from the community on STEM and technology skills, being able to leverage scientific inquiry to solve problems and being technology literate. So if we're meeting this vision, we have a couple ideas in all of these categories to help get us there. So tonight, we're going to talk about community partnerships and organizational effectiveness, and it's really important because I know I'm giving this overview, but these are not my ideas or any one person's ideas. They were all actually created, developed, and vetted by Manchester Proud's Community Planning Group, a few members of whom are here tonight, and they will introduce themselves when they are up here. After a really detailed review of all of the research that has been done over the past year to 2 years, and their own expertise as members of the community and the school district. So, hide that from you guys for right now. We're going to get started maybe with community partnerships first. I'm going to invite my friends Diane and Deo up with me. And they will lead you through some of the core ideas. If anyone who came in late needs a copy of them, they're up here, so just come grab one. And this kicks off. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Fitzpatrick. I am the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester. Thank you for being here. This is important work, and we really want to just give you an overview of our community partners and what we're working on. And we've done a lot of groups.
Yeah.
It's not working. I feel like I'm straight articulate.
Yeah, hi, my name is Deo. I'm based in Manchester, and I've been involved with different community organizations, but one called Bring It. It's an after-school program at Hillside Middle School. And I'm excited to be here. I've been with the community planning group since last year.
This, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. And you're a product of the Manchester School District.
Yes, I attended, I started off at Wilson and ended up at Memorial. So it's been my journey.
Yeah, and I'm a mom of 2 young adults, and they went through the Manchester School District. They've always been passionate about our education, and now being in this role, I find that it's really critical for us to partner with the district and really identify the resources that we have in our community. That's why it was important for me to be part of this planning group and have these conversations. So I thought it was important for you all to know why we got involved. All right, so what we would like to focus on right now is talking about the strength and systemizing community partners. You hear that word a lot. What is community partners? We have a lot of nonprofits here in the community, and I look at it as the Manchester School District as a hub. And then we've got all these amazing community partners like Inmuskeg Health, Waypoint, the YMCA, the YW. Think about the resources we have in the community. And each school has relationships with different nonprofits. How could we systemize that? How could we, and one of the suggestions was to hire a coordinator to help manage all those relationships. Because those relationships are really important for the children in our community and our families, but if it's not organized, it's not systematized. And so that was one of the recommendations that the committee came up with.
And then the second one was establishing a community information hub for more inclusive and access for district-wide communication. So not just in the sense of from the schools to the students, but also identifying where people congregate. So it could be community partnerships, even through churches or local organizations where information can be shared there and they can disseminate it to everyone else.
And then organizing partners as a way of supporting and implementing a plan. Implementing a plan is critical. So advocacy and accountability. It's great to have a plan, but if we're not holding one another accountable, this plan is going to go nowhere. So the committee and the community has really talked about formalizing and organize a whole community partners between businesses, nonprofits to support and refine the plan. But again, think of the district as a hub and bringing these businesses and nonprofits coming together to support it. So that was one way of advocacy and accountability.
And then the following one is socialize community asset through a community connection committee. So having different key stakeholders that are working with the schools and with the students to meet on a regular basis. And then through that also having some sort of a hub. So either a website or an app or a platform where those information can be shared, but also easy to access.
Aligning our partners to share, every student has access to high quality extended learning opportunities, ELOs, including transportation. So we think about the city of Manchester. If a child doesn't have a car or doesn't have transportation, they don't get equal access to these types of programs. And so we really need to start thinking holistically of how we're delivering this. And these kinds of experiences are going to lead our children into what their next phase of learning is, be the trades or career or college. But transportation and equal opportunities to these types of trainings was important to the group.
And then on the following category, it's really more around community partnerships to support all learners. So we're actually looking at what kind of information that schools and the community partners have access to in order to be able to intervene at real time. So one of the things that's under that is being able to scale the community school or elements of community school model. So looking at wraparound services. So if a student's struggling with this, where does that student spend most of their time after school, and who are they connected with in order to get them the information that they need so they can support the student effectively. We're working with the community for the last 11 years. I've learned so much from some of the students that I've worked with, and sometimes not having data at real time, if you're trusting the student to be able to report out, they might not be telling you the truth, right? Say, how are you doing in your classes? Well, I'm doing well. Well, it's different than when you have the data to be like, hey man, you look like you're struggling with this a little bit. Let's work on this a little bit. So I think that's super, super important in order to push the student forward successfully.
If I'd also add just on interagency data sharing agreements, I know sometimes when folks hear that, it makes them really nervous about sharing student data and violating student privacy. Just know that these kinds of things exist and work really well in other cities. And we could actually pull direct agreements from other places that totally abide by FERPA, that really protect student privacy, but still gets that key data between the school district and youth serving agencies to help us track and follow kids and understand where they could use our support.
All right, and then create a foundation or alumni funding stream. Again, throwing money at something is not the solution. But one of the suggestions was creating a foundation. We've got a strong pride in the city of Manchester. If you ask anybody, I know when I'm traveling and I meet somebody from Manchester, hey, did you go to school in Manchester? What school did you go to? There's a Central Pride, there's a Memorial, there's a Trinity. We have great pride in our community, but there are people that really want to give back and move into school. Is this a possibility? And again, these are just suggestions. We want to get your feedback tonight as well.
The following one is scaled post-secondary coaching and mentorship partnerships. In terms of scaling it, there's a ton of support happening currently in our community regarding post-secondary preparation or pathways, but it's not uniform. So this is a great opportunity to be able to look at what's actually working and how can we take this from one organization to another. And then having someone to really focus on bringing in that expertise. So we're lucky because there's a ton of universities in the community, and having that relationship to try to figure out, what's the best model to really use in order to push this forward.
One of my favorite things to talk about is scaling the ABC Early Warning Program. And I know many of you might not know what this ABC program, but at the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, we have launched a pilot program for the last 2 years where parents sign off and we're allowed to share information. And we're looking at attendance, we're looking at behavior, and we're looking at grades. So going back to Deo's point is getting that real-time intervention. When we are really working with guidance counselors and teachers in the school district, we're really able to say to a child, listen, I notice you're failing math. Let us get you a tutor at the Boys and Girls Club. Let's follow up with your guidance counselor. So this early warning system, we have over 600 children enrolled at the Boys and Girls Club. We've seen positive results. What we want to do as a community is scale that so it's part of the culture here in Manchester, and we're interconnecting and sharing information for student success and really helping parents, supporting parents through this whole process. So we've seen some success, but the goal is to really expand that and do real-time intervention for our children in the city of Manchester. Open to questions, that's right. We'd love to hear from you. That's what this is all about this evening. So any thoughts, questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And again, these are suggestions. We want to be able to get your thoughts, and we're welcoming any thoughts at all.
So what are you having, like a follow-up committee meeting? How do we start? I feel like I've been to several of these meetings where it's like, let's put all the resources together. And I'm like, okay, yeah, where do I, so now what? So do we have a committee to set up an app where we can all put in our info? Or
I think once we start developing this plan, what this plan has done, as well as the many initiatives that are happening within the community, we are now, and I know Laura's in this room and she can speak of it, we're seeing more of the nonprofits coming together and really supporting the district. This whole process now is going to help us create a system. So some of the work is already done. Now we're assessing what initiatives are being done and figure out what the best ones are and how does it fit in this plan to the strategic plan for the district. So there will be more conversations, but we're learning from the lessons that we've already implemented from the ABC program and other strategies. But we've got a group that are very interested in the app. Like, think about the many companies that are just in Manchester that can help us with that. And you're a new family that comes to the city of Manchester and you don't know what's available to you. And you, instead of just giving them a number 211, they can go on the app, they can and be able to navigate that and utilize, boy, I can go to my school and it's a community school, I can figure out this information. So we are in that process right now.
it's a fabulous idea. I feel like a lot of free resources are going to waste just because people don't know.
They just don't know what they don't know. So where's the best place? We know our family's going to register their children for school. So I look at the school again as the important center of the city. So how can we really maximize it as youth-serving agencies, as nonprofits, to really systemize the process to lift our community?
And I would just like to add, there's already some groups that have already started to take it.
We can hear you, but when the person is asking a question,
I'm
you
sorry,
need to bring
I'm
the
sorry.
mic to her because we couldn't hear her.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so one of the things, I have to really project a voice, but one of the things I wanted to just touch on is already there's been community groups that are already focusing on certain groups of students that they serve that already started some of this. I know the New American Center has been congregating some service providers that work with immigrants. So they've been meeting, I think it's every other month.
We were linked on a about
Yes,
that.
yes, yeah. So it seems like that momentum is already starting. So it's good to start looking at from a citywide, what does that look like when you get the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, everybody involved. Because at the end of the day, I think one of the big things that came out of some of these hunches was people are realizing that even though the experience is different between what happens in school and what happens outside of school, but the students are still in the center, right? So we're still serving the same students, and some of the same challenges that they experience, it bleeds out wherever they are. So how can we come together and start pushing this effort forward? And I think what you've seen in the hunches are, obviously this is a lot for one category. That's where we need the community to give inputs and vote in order to figure out what are the top ones that we're going to decide to include in the final proposal.
We can't do all of these things. So that's why it's really, really important to get your thoughts. What are some priorities? What do you think that will work? Deo and I are here today to say we've started some of these things and we're seeing some positive traction. But again, for this plan to work, it needs to be a collective voice, and that's what we're looking for.
I was just wondering if you could explain the hub and spoke model and the rated funding a little bit more.
Yeah, we're doing that right now. I feel like now I'm yelling. Am I yelling? We're doing that right now with Granite United Way, with the youth initiative happening. The Boys and Girls Club and the large nonprofits are the hub, and we're bringing resources into our organization. So, for example, Amoskeag Health is coming into the Boys and Girls Club and offering mental health counseling to our tweens at no cost. So you can see that wraparound services. The YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club has jointly gone and applied for grants for summertime. We have a fantastic summer program, but we applied for those together. The Boys and Girls Club applied for the bar grant at West High School, which was really going to explore learning, and we were the fiscal agent. So that's how we're doing it, really leveraging a nonprofit with the school district to attract funding and maximize our resources. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't know if I know what graded means, but I got.
I think graded, really integrating our funding model. So years and years ago, and before Diane came into the role as the Boys and Girls Club, we were very focused on, this is my pie, this is how I'm going to go approach this grant. Now you're seeing the nonprofit agencies going collectively, working and applying for grants together. We're not competing for it. We all have the same goal. We want to serve our children in the city of Manchester. So that competitive model, those silos have been broken down. We continue to come together to figure out ways and strategies that we can lift the community instead of just being one organization saying this is what we do. We're looking around and we're doing assessments and figuring out how we're all interconnected, how we braided together to apply for different foundations. The Bean Foundation, Kathy Cook is here right now, and she's seeing this over the years, that we are coming together and finding different strategies to find funding and to maximize the resources we have. We're a very rich community with strong nonprofits and a strong district. How do we come together to maximize that? So that's how we grade it.
And that braided model is so important because fortunately, some of the same organizations might be working with the same student. So it's like, those are the same students. So it makes sense to be able to come together and go for those grants collectively instead of competing.
I'm just going to, I don't have a question, I'm just going to sort of add and say, this is actually a real benefit to residents and our taxpayers when, full disclosure, I work for Amoskeag Health, but I'm a resident, I'm a mom, my son goes to Memorial. When the nonprofits are willing to work in this way, and so, apply for a grant, and, we pay for our staff, but we're placing a staff person in the school, that's a benefit to taxpayers and, help try to avoid conversations about tax caps and all of that. It's really, I think, unique. That collaboration piece is so important. I don't know if it takes a person, but from my perspective and the collaborative work that I do, the centralizing piece of community partnerships is so important. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to know who to go to for what in the district right now. We're trying to piece all of these things together.
So I actually had a really similar comment, and I think that centralizing piece is really important to think about, because that can also be a person that can see these different nonprofits coming in with different things and say, this would be better if you two work together. I think that's huge. One thing I'll say, having partnered with other districts who have a similar position, one potential downfall is if that one person or whoever it is has too much control over the process, just because then it's all based on who they know and who comes into the school. And so trying to formalize like what are we looking for in our partners, and we're getting feedback regularly from the schools and all of that.
Right. Great recommendation. Yes.
And I would just like to ask, how do you envision communicating all of this to the community, and where is the community going to find out all of the good work that's going on? Because I don't have a student, I don't have a student in school, so, but I want to be connected and I want to know what's going on, but I don't know where to go. I don't know how to find that out. So do you have a plan for that?
I think, so the question was, how do you find out information if you're just a community member and don't have a student connected, or connected through a student currently, but you want to stay involved? And so my answer would be, I think that's exactly what item number 4 is attempting to do, socialize community assets through a community connection committee or some sort of formal network of the school district and youth serving agencies, et cetera, who would be charged with getting that information out, whether through something like a website or an app that everyone will kind of know, a storytelling campaign. What else? Oh, there was also talk about some sort of district-wide event that everyone knows that on December 1st every year or whatever, every youth serving agency will all be in this location with a booth and you can come and anyone in the community can get information, those kinds of things. So that's sort of that getting at exactly your question is how might we do that?
Well, because I'd just like to add to that is that there are people in the community that I'm sure want to be helpful to the process. So there's a lot of resource in the community that
And we're discovering that through these conversations. So I appreciate you being here. And there are so many ways through the marketing and communication over the next few months that we're going out there, working with a union leader. Today, WZID had this forum on there saying, please come join us. We've got to do more of that as a community and get the message out. You know, communicating what's happening and the success here in Manchester, it takes all of us. And I agree, sometimes if you don't have a child in the district, you just don't know. If you're not associated with the Boys and Girls Club, you might not know we need help with tutoring, but you want to be involved. So that's what we're figuring out, strategies of how do we bring people together. And we're a large city, but if we can do it in Manchester because it's been done all across the nation, but I really firmly believe with our city and how kind of scrappy we are and how we believe in the work that we do, we're seeing change in just a short period of time. And I'm so proud to be part of that, but we've got to get that message out, so I agree with you.
I was also thinking about getting programs, getting parents actively engaged in training centers for parents, especially for learners, young learners, so that you can give access to them so that their students, their kids, can work with them. Because if you have a successful student, it's 1/3 the student, 1/3 the school, and 1/3 the parents. So all your programs need to include the parents involved.
I absolutely agree with you. The social fabric of our society has changed so much, right? The challenges, the level of poverty in our city. It is our responsibility to help lift our families and our parents. And the district can't do it alone. I've been saying that for quite some time. It's up to all of us as youth-serving agencies, as nonprofits, to identify what resources are out there. So going to Amoskeag Health and saying, I'm looking for a parenting class and I've got a building that's available for several hours. How can we involve that? We have community schools in the city of Manchester where families are feeling really supported. How do we get more of those community schools out there so families feel like they can go there and get the support that they need? So we're really examining that, and we need to make that as a priority because we have to help our families become stronger.
I do want to add, can I answer your question a little bit around that? A good example of what I've seen that worked really well. I think this is where community partners might close the gap. Example, looking at the basic needs. So you might have an event, but students might It might not be walking distance for them. So a good example of this, McLaughlin Middle School, they do this literacy night in April, but they've realized in order to get all the students and their parents there, they have to provide transportation. And then at the same time, they also provide translation. So last year I attended it, there was over almost 200 people there. But they went, far and beyond, and that was through the EL department, where they provided buses to the different locations where some of the students live. Because of that, some of the parents were able to show up. So it's not just the sense of creating a program, but it's also understanding what are other stuff we need to put in place in order to actually have the parents showing up. And sometimes the basic needs is super important, like transportation.
Right, and you have to understand that every parent wants to do something for their kid. A lot of them are fearful because they don't have the skills. And it's our job, I guess, to educate the whole community. And that's the only way the schools are going to be successful in the city. If we leave out the parent, then it's not going to work.
I absolutely agree, and I think going to Daya's point, identifying what the barriers are, right? We need to know what that is transportation is, how can we conform and help those families get to where they need to be? There's so many different barriers, but I know the school's really working with families, after-school programs are, but I think that's a very valid point. What are the barriers and how can we as a community help families achieve?
Doesn't it seem like a very simple, so we have a Manchester Proud Hub, and it has a tiered system of access. So like nonprofit school districts, the people that are like making the events happen are here, then the information posts out that we need rides or this, or but like, I don't know if Blackboard or any of this stuff is designed to, does it exist already, an app like this?
There's tools out there. I think it's just a matter of, well, that's part of the Manchester Proud initiative is to come up with this this strategy proposal that then hopefully the school district gets to adopt and implement. So part of this phase is trying to figure out what are the critical thing the community is saying, hey, you need to consider this. And then hopefully the school district with the community and everybody that's come alongside find a way to implement some of this.
It seems like an app is like somebody has bought into it already, so they log on and they check the thing. So that's a whole, the whole community buying into a singular app that we all use as a scruffy Manchester, however you identify us as a people. But those, so that just seems.
And so if we feel this hunch is important, where do we find it? How do we make that happen? And I think this is why we wanted to go over these hunches, get your thoughts, have you vote on it, and then we're going to start putting things in place. But, some really good recommendations have come through.
I think it's really important to clarify what a community school is too, because oftentimes it should be like a capital C, capital S. And do people know what community schools are? Do people know what, so community schools, I think, are something that's part of this recommendation. And we have two, sort of formally now, at Beach Street and Goslar. But sort of theoretically, community schools are meant to be the neighborhood hub. And we have 14 elementary schools. So we actually, in terms of access, there's a lot of access through 14 schools. But that is a place where people in that neighborhood can go. And it doesn't just have to be for the families of students that attend that particular school. It's the people that live there. It's the residents. So it could be another opportunity for people to get information, as you were asking about what's happening in our schools or with our kids or whatever. It's sort of this like a neighborhood hub in some respects. And it's we sort of have to shift our thinking in terms of school being a place we send our kids. Schools don't need to just be a place we send our kids. It's a place where where we can go because it's part of our community or our neighborhood or whatever. So, and those community schools often have either services right there or in very close vicinity that those neighborhoods might need. So there might be access to mental health or primary care or after-school programs or sort of whatever that neighborhood needs. So there's actually national models around that are extremely successful and helping in the areas that Manchester needs, like, like attendance, graduation rates, etc.
So it's Gosler Park and which other one?
Beach Street.
How does the community school, I'm a new school board member, not yet, community school, don't know anything about it. How were they established?
So maybe, I think it was in 2014, under the lead of the Manchester Health Department, but again, really collaborative process with the school district, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Granite United Way, the Bean Foundation, I mean, and lots of partners. They created this neighborhood health improvement strategy, and it was really sort of birthed to death. But part of the piece around kids was the suggestion to establish or to pilot community schools to address some of the educational needs, particularly from a public health perspective, and what education means for everything else in our community. So the community schools piece was a pilot, and it's grown, I think, and sort of learned, and there's been some real successes in terms of attendance, in particular, I think, at Beach, and I forget what Gosler focused on, but it's, so I can connect with you after too.
And actually, in the 1970s, when the Beach Street School was built, it was built as a community school under a grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We're very involved at the time, and the mission sort of faded away. If you looked at the infrastructure of that school, it originally had locker rooms downstairs and showers and everything. It was supposed to be a community gathering space for the community. And I think as time went on, it faded away, and this is sort of the second coming of the community school movement in Manchester.
Speaking of the second coming, I want to know what plan you have around the Manchester Foundation. Because I can't remember when, but I kind of remember one got started about 15 or 20 years ago, and they had a big meeting in the Puritan back room, but anyhow, and everyone gave a good donation. It was great, and I couldn't wait for the next year for my envelope to come, and it never came, so I don't know. Art, do you know whatever happened to that or anything?
We need a history
Ian
lesson.
asked a question.
Oh, I don't know what was
Stop
the
paying
question?
attention.
I was actually talking to this young lady here. What's the question?
Do you remember about 15 or 20 years ago, someone tried to start a Manchester Education Foundation?
I don't recall that, but I'm not
Okay.
saying it didn't happen, I
I
don't
do,
recall
because
it.
I went to the opening meeting.
And let's remember, these were hunches. So this whole group came out, we identified, we had a lot of great ideas, but you had to kind of like bring it together, right? So we voted on it, and this is what we came up with. So now we want your thought. Do you think it's a great idea? I mean, and you get to vote. This is exciting. We got one more question. I'll stay.
You're saying, you think it's a great idea. I took it like number 5, we get those. I at the University of New Hampshire in Manchester, and so a lot of the students don't necessarily have access to these extended learning opportunities in which they can earn high school credit. And I would love to see consistencies across the schools because how they're implemented across the schools is different. And then we have so many resources at the university with our students or instructors who want to become involved, but the transportation is a huge barrier getting those students. And so whenever I write grants to try to establish programs, it always has to fund transportation, and I could do so much more if we could accomplish something around the transportation issue and really have even more learning opportunities for these students who might not necessarily have them.
There are companies that are approaching like us, and I had asked that question. I said, so if I asked you for buses and things like this, and they were down, like big bank companies and things like this. So that's the other thing that I'm excited about is that, like, YW, but we have all these resources and they're not being utilized. So like, this is a really exciting thing to say, hi, did you need? I have a company here, like, and connecting that.
And I think transportation, let's be real, you know, unemployment rate, the way it is, finding good bus drivers is really hard. Maintaining a fleet, I can tell you, that keeps me up at night. Snowstorm, when my staff, and I was a bus monitor yesterday picking up kids at a few schools, it's a serious issue here. So, you know, I've got, the Boys and Girls Club has a fleet, the Y has a fleet, Girls Inc. has a fleet, we've got, Easter Seals has a fleet. How can we take all of that and create a synergy and really manage that so we're not spending more money, but we're thinking more wisely? So there is opportunity. I'm honored that my staff are so willing to be bus drivers. I am not that yet. But I mean, you know, it really takes a whole village to make this happen. And transportation is an issue in our community.
And I just want to add one thing. You brought up ELOs. If you don't know what ELOs are, it's Extended Learning Opportunity Coordinators. There's 4 of them, I believe, currently, and they find outside learning opportunity for students, and they get credits for it. And I've been working with ELOs in Manchester for the last 10 years. They are most of the time not fully recognized of the work that they do, and they're super, super critical because they're the bridge. Most of the time, they're the ones who are working with the outside businesses or communities that are creating these opportunities, and they help contextualize the work to make sure that it's credit bearing. So, and we haven't really, to be honest, we haven't really provided them a lot of support that they need in order for them to be effective, and even from the structure of their compensation. So I do think as a community, it's something that we really, really need to look at regarding how do we continue to support ELOs in order to make these partnerships happen. A lot of these partnerships are happening in terms of credit-bearing opportunities through ELOs.
Okay, so you have 2 choices for your next task. We're going to ask you to vote. The catch is you can only vote for half. Yes, there's an odd number, which means I take 1 more away. So you can vote for 3 of the 7 ideas that you think are worth the most investment, that get you really fired up, that you would really love to see included in the strategic plan. You can do this one of 2 ways. Are there not 7? There's 9. Just kidding. How many do we get? 4. You can go, if you are tech savvy and you'd like to use your phone, you'll see that first tiny URL right there, COMMPART ideas. If you'd like to do it that way, you can. If not, you can take a sticky, and you can vote using stickies, manual, right on the ideas right here, which are the same as the ones on your sheet. Take your pick, we'll give you a couple minutes.